afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Walter from ELT in Brazil.
And I'm Bruno Albuquerque. Welcome.
Welcome to the last episode of this series of videos, of video lessons.
Extra
it's the
one.
last one of this course. All right. And Bruno, what shall we talk about today?
Today, this is an extra episode that came up on episode 4, I believe. We talked about recording 5. Yeah, we talked about recording an extra episode on accent because I believe we cannot talk about pronunciation not fully, but comprehensively without mentioning accents, because I think it's the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about pronunciation. It's but what about accent? What do we do about accent? So this episode is a chat on this topic, on accents. And Walter, I'll start with the first question. What variety of English, what kind of English do you think we should teach our students?
I'm gonna answer that with another question that somebody asked me a long time ago. I had a student who was preparing for, I believe it was CAE or CPE, something like that. And then he asked me, Walter, what variety of English should I write in the test? Because it's a Cambridge exam. Should I use like British spelling? And I said, don't do anything that wouldn't be consistent. Why would you use British spelling if you sound more like an American, like you lean towards that English when you're speaking? And this is a person who is a very competent speaker. So I think you should teach the one that you are, let's say, most comfortable with. Why would you teach something that is not your standard pronunciation? And then we also have the fact that, like, do we actually speak American English or British English, or do we speak Brazilian English? So there begs the question, right? So I don't know. It depends. Like maybe, like, Bruno, I believe you learned English in Brazil, right? Like
I did. Yes.
Yeah, you did, and you did it to a great extent. Achieved the highest level, and that's what it is, right? So why would you say you speak American English or British English?
Yeah, I don't think, and even there's this issue, and people are blue in the face of hearing this, but I think it's worth mentioning. I don't think there is such a thing as American accent and British accent, the same way that there isn't a Brazilian accent, right? So
everybody
which is the Brazilian?
Yeah.
Yes. So which is the Brazilian accent? Is it from Rio de Janeiro, from São Paulo, from Rio Grande do Sul, from Brasilia, right? So these are all Brazilian Portugueses, and you would expect people in the United States and in Britain to speak different varieties of English, right? But I definitely second what you said when it goes to, you should teach the variety you're more comfortable with, and this being your own variety. So this was a piece of advice that one of my tutors in Celta gave me. I was transcribing words in the lesson plan using phonemic symbols, and he pointed to one of the words and he said, "Do you say it like this?" And I was like, "No, I say it in a different way." I said, "So transcribe it the way you say it." Because when you get to teach your students, say the word and transcribe the word the way you normally pronounce it, as long as it's not wrong, right? So I was transcribing in a very, how can I put this, the received pronunciation, like very, very British, and the kind of English that the Queen would probably use.
You're transcribing RP. You're transcribing.
Yes, I was transcribing RP. Yeah, and he said, "Don't transcribe it the way you think you sound when you say the word." And I think this is the way to go. We should teach the English that we, as competent, proficient users of the language, as bilingual users of the language, we use, right? And not trying to mimic a model that, in my very personal opinion, doesn't exist. I don't think a model of American English exists.
That's the thing. How realistic would that be, right?
Mhm.
Like, if like, especially if you don't sound anything like a British person or an American person, I mean North America in general, like, why would you transcribe something and then when
You
you're
say it
teaching,
differently.
it's not what you're
Yeah.
using?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, it would be
Yeah.
nonsensical, right?
Yeah. And it's weird. Like imagine who's the model of Brazilian Portuguese? Is it William Bonner? And then,
Yes.
right?
I
It's
know I don't
very
sound I
yeah.
know I don't sound like
I
that.
don't. Definitely not.
Yes.
Second
I
question. Oh, carry
I,
on.
I'm just gonna put something in the middle there, because there are varieties of a language, and I don't mean just English, that are extremely frowned upon. That people don't. I think somebody once asked Clinton before he was the president. He's a Southern speaker, and they asked him like, "You went to one of the best universities in the world. You studied and you did this and that, and why do you still sound like that?" Because his Southern accent made him look like he's less intelligent, which is not true. And
It's
I'm
just
not here to
racist,
defend
right?
Clinton. I'm not. It's not
Mhm.
about that. But the thing is, the variety of accent that you have kind of influences that. It's interesting, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
if you speak, there are, and this is something that is like there is science involved. There is research involved to to point out that the RP accent is the most prestigious accent.
Mhm.
And I'm not here to say that's right. I'm actually here to question that, right?
Mhm.
Because an accent does not prove anybody's smarter than anybody.
Mhm. Yeah, it's just racism, xenophobia, right? It's I think it's the same kind of prejudice that sometimes people from Nordeste in Brazil they face because of their
Mhm.
accent, right? And come on, we're in the middle of elections, and we see the kinds of things that our delightful president says
I
about
mean, yeah, we
people.
know
So
what's happening. Yeah,
yeah, we know what's happening.
it's just
But
it's disgusting. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah, and
disgusting.
not to get in that Seara because I think it would be too much for a video. Quite the next question I'd like to ask you, Valde, is what do you think is the goal of teaching pronunciation? Why do we teach pronunciation?
I could answer that question with one word:
Okay.
intelligibility.
Yes, I have the same answer. Exactly.
And I
Exactly.
think the goal is that native speakers will understand your students.
By the way, this was not planned, everybody. This is a real
Wasn't.
conversation. Carry on about it.
It really wasn't. I promise you that much. But the goal is that your students can go anywhere and they wouldn't have problems understanding people, and people wouldn't have problems understanding them, right? Especially because English is the lingua franca, so you can go anywhere you want and you will find people who speak English at the hotel, restaurant, whatever place you go, right? Whatever country you
Fantastic.
go, the chances are that is going to happen. So intelligibility.
Yeah, fantastic. And I love this view that intelligibility is a two-way street, right? Is being understood and understanding, right? So
It has to be, right? Yeah.
for example, when in our lessons about connected speech, we mentioned this like a couple of times that connected speech um, this is a personal view. I feel that when we're teaching connected speech, the main goal of this lesson is for students to understand what's being told to them, and as a second goal, to be able to use connected speech to sound more natural, to sound more fluent, and as you were saying, to access different social circles, but definitely is to understand and to be understood. It's,
Not only do I second
amazing.
that, not only do I second that which you said, but also I like the order. So the goal is to first to be able to understand for the student. Like it's something very annoying, and it's frustrating. If imagine that you're traveling. I've been through that because I studied English as an adult. I learned English as an adult, and when I went to Canada, I was able to speak because I was you see, I was like I was very communicative and willing to communicate. So I wanted to talk. So I was able to speak. I couldn't understand. I would listen to people talking around me, and it just hurts, you know. So teaching those things of features of connected speech, they can make a total difference.
Oh yes, definitely. And especially I've heard once, and I cannot source this, and it's probably wrong, but it's I think it's an interesting thing to think about. This person said that native speakers, that monolingual speakers, were the worst communicators because bilingual speakers, they are trained to deal with language breakdowns, with communication breakdowns. So they know how to negotiate, meaning they know when to slow down, when to speed up, when to repeat, when to use simpler words to communicate. And I think that's great. This is also intelligibility, right? Knowing how to adapt your beautiful, pristine C2 English to communicate with everyone, right?
Absolutely.
Because I love those posts that they have this comparison between basic English and advanced English, and they have the weirdest suggestions, as in don't say I think, say in light of the fact that, and it's just ridiculous. Come on. This is not real communication.
You know, we actually had this when I worked at Cultura, some teachers had this inner joke, like whenever a teacher passed CPE, they would say, oh, so you speak CPE-ish.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah, but
It's not
anybody
English
who's
anymore.
training for CPE, when they're in the middle, because they're training, they're studying, and they start to sound like that, right? It's like, what's going on here? Right?
Yeah.
Which
And
can,
it's funny.
it's
Your
about appropriacy, right? It's about
yes,
appropriacy. Who you're talking to? What's the
and,
situation?
and I think it's about intelligibility as well, because you're becoming more proficient in a language, and you're excluding more and more people from the conversation because you're
Yes.
more
Yes.
sophisticated now, right?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. You're excluding people, right? And
Yes.
because you're more
And
proficient, you should be able to include more people in the conversation, not the other way around.
and that's not to say that you shouldn't learn more
Oh no,
sophisticated
no.
vocabulary, and it's just a matter of fill the
Mhm.
room, right?
No.
Like when you're
Yes.
at a bar with your friends, you don't want to sound like that, and that's also something we have to teach because it's appropriacy. It's a part of
Definitely.
language analysis.
Yeah.
You got to do it anyway. Students should learn that as well.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to the next question.
Sure. Walter, when should you teach pronunciation? I really like this question.
I really like this question. I'm actually very curious to hear your answer on that, but I'm sure we are gonna agree. We should teach pronunciation at any moment that you find that it's appropriate, necessary, because like pronunciation is something that may break communication. So you can't let that happen. Second, to me, I would teach pronunciation at every stage of a lesson that I have a language presentation. If you're talking about PPP, it could be TBL, whatever. If you're focusing on language, you were going to focus on meaning, you're going to focus on form, and you are going to focus on pronunciation. And you were going to focus on pronunciation at every lesson. And sometimes you have a feedback log, and you're just going to give your students, it might be feedback on anything, but on every lesson, you got to give them some feedback on pronunciation. There's no way you wouldn't to any level.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see, and this is where I think it's the most, because in my experience, teachers very often give feedback on pronunciation. Error correction is mainly, and then we need a course on giving feedback and error correction, because I feel that most of error correction and feedback lies on grammatical accuracy and pronunciation accuracy, right? And then there is very little feedback outside of these two realms, right? But the thing you mentioned is, whenever there is language presentation, whenever there is language analysis, pronunciation has to be part of it, right? So how can you describe the simple past if you only talk about its meaning and its form? You have to help students with saying the words. You're teaching vocabulary, and then it gets much more obvious, I think. You're teaching new words. You have to teach what they mean, how they are spelled, what kind of word they are, their adjective, their nouns, their verbs, and you gotta teach students how to say them, right?
And their purpose as well.
Yeah,
So
I
all of those
just
things
wouldn't. I have never felt the need. It is a possibility, but I've never felt the need of having a lesson on pronunciation, like a whole class around a feature of connected speech, or some specific sounds or clusters of consonants. I've never felt the need, and I feel that this lesson wouldn't be very
meaningful,
interesting
perhaps.
to my students. Yeah, but it is a possibility. I've just never actually done it.
I actually think that's because, well, if you think about monolingual classes, Brazilian students are good. Like, they're good at pronouncing English words. I don't. Of course, there are words that there are some specific sounds that you can always work with them. But in terms of intelligibility, for example, if you think about the sound of the sound or the sound, if you have students pronouncing that with a T, like thank you, I don't think there is a problem there, really.
I disagree. I think there is a problem, and I will always correct. But I would never teach a whole class on that.
Oh, yeah, no.
I will always point out when students make that mistake, so that they try using the appropriate sound. But I agree, it's not a huge deal, right?
Yeah.
Walter, last question.
Last one.
So I'm studying more on pronunciation. I want to study more on pronunciation. Teachers watching this want to study more on pronunciation. What sources do you suggest? Could be books, talks, whatever. What do you think? Teachers, what sources do you suggest?
The first thing that I would say is there's a video on YouTube by Adrian Underhill, in which he's teaching the phonemic chart. I think it's very interesting to see the way he teaches it, it's just amazing.
Mhm.
So
It
I
is.
would definitely watch that. I would subscribe to this channel and watch the videos of our course because that will be helpful. That's number two.
Yeah,
And I would buy,
second to Under a Hill, right? I see.
yes.
Humble as can
But
be.
yes, do subscribe, do give us a like, please. But it's more on a more serious note, I would say that there are so many things that if you are on that side of teachers who prefer to watch things to than to read things, so I think YouTube is gonna be reach. Like there's so many things that you will find. Just be careful what sources are these people using, and I mean, what are their credentials? Like, are you sure? Make sure you were following the right content. Don't worry about the person being native speaker or non-native speaker, but more about their background, that kind of thing. And if you want to read, there is a book by, I think it's Jennifer Jenkins,
I'm
and
not familiar.
yeah, I'm gonna have to check. I'll check.
Mhm.
And Underhill. Underhill is
Mhm.
like, if you take a look at the book Sounds Foundation, great
Yeah.
ideas there. Just
Yeah,
great
I
ideas.
think sound foundations. It's a sound foundation to studying pronunciation. So I would definitely start there. If you enjoy the academic kind of writing, perhaps Peter Roach. I don't
Oh,
remember
yes.
the name of the book. I had it here.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
I have the name
it's
of
English
Jenkins.
phonetics and phonology. I think Peter Roach.
Can you
Mhm.
repeat that?
I think it's English phonetics and phonology, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Peter Roach's book, is it?
Mm. Oh, you got it
Yes,
there.
English phonetics and phonology. Yes,
Great.
yes,
Well,
this book.
Jenkins's book is The Phonology of English as an International Language.
Oh, nice. I don't have that
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
And also there's this small one, but quite interesting. It can be like an introduction, how to teach pronunciation. It's a
The
very interesting
series,
book
right?
with
It
some
is
activity
the ultimate
suggestions.
series of books for us. Yes.
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
great one.
So, Walter, I think this is the end
Yes.
of our episode, right?
In our
Thank
first
you.
course.
And the first course, yes. Yay.
Yes.
So more coming next week if you're watching this live. And thank you, Walter. Uh,
Thank you,
and
Bruno.
we'll
And
see you next week.
yeah, well, we are gonna have some news for you very, very soon. All right.
Oh,
I'll see
yes.
you there. Thank you.
See
Thanks
you.
for watching
Goodbye.
and see you around. Bye.
See you.